Hi guys, I'm back again today with another video, and this is the life of Umar by Sheikh Ibrahim Ois Efa. This was requested by, I didn't write it down. I think it's Hassan, right? So let's see. We're going to split this into 4 parts, and um it will continue probably next week because I'm not around. So probably we'll continue again next week. I'm not so sure about the schedule, but today will be the first part, and then next week will be the rest of the parts. So anyways, before we do start, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell button, and let's check this out.
الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك ولعظيم سلطانك سبحانك لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك فلك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا رضيت ولك الحمد بعد الرضا اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وصلي وسلم على سيدنا محمد في الآخرين وصلي وسلم على سيدنا محمد في كل وقت وحين وصلي وسلم على سيدنا محمد في الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين وصلي وسلم على سيدنا محمد حتى ترث الأرض ومن عليها أنت خير الوارثين نويت تعلم وتعليم وتذكر وتذكير نفع انتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وبسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء للهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. This is the vicegerency, the age of just rule. We look at the second of the Imams of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum wa ardah, Sayyidina Umar
Oh,
ibn
so he's
Khattab,
also a Sahaba, okay.
the greatest of the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. In accordance to the orthodox teachings of Islam, he's considered the second of the great companions of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and the second of the Shaykhan, the second of the two Shaykhs, the two elders of the companions of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Distinguished in this world as well as in the next. We looked at the first and the greatest of them, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu warda. Of the things that distinguish Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq inside of the next world is that he is the first non-prophet to enter into paradise. And the things that distinguish Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab inside of the next world, that he's the first being to receive his book inside of his right hand, radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda. He's somebody of a great stature with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, evidently inshallah ta'ala, as we'll cover today, and somebody no doubt whatsoever who is dear to the Messenger himself sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. This is Sa'id ibn Jubayr radiallahu anhu. He said, and the righteous of the faithful, in Surah Tahrim, this was revealed about Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda, a man of great piety, of great righteousness radiallahu anhu warda, and as we see, a man who brings forth the greatest of the generations of the Muslims, Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab, great in his generation, of the greatest in the generation with the child or the children that he brought forth, the likes of his son Sayyidina Abdullah, the likes of his daughter Sayyidina Hafsa, the mother of the believers, the greatest of the generations that come thereafter, the likes of his grandson Sayyidina Salim ibn Abdullah, and the likes of his great grandson Sayyidina Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, the great caliph. The Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda is somebody who generation after generation produces the greatest people, those who work at the highest sort of echelons of the religion of himself. But obviously our durus, inshallah, next few durus, is to look at the great Imam himself radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda. But I think what's amazing about the statement of Sayyidina Sa'id ibn Jubayr, Sa'id ibn Jubayr considered of the Imams of the Tabi'een, the most knowledgeable and the most pious people of that generation, the second generation of students of the Sahaba, one of the primary students of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas. But what's amazing about the statement of Sayyidina Sa'id ibn Jubayr radiallahu anhu warda is when we consider that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from beyond 7 heavens is speaking about Umar ibn Khattab. and in particular Quran, speaking about a very, very particular individual. The Quran always has generic signification, and every one of us can find ourselves inside of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but no doubt most of us, we have to search deep, and we need to access people who have a very discerning eye. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, مَا فَرَّطْنَا فِي الْكِتَابِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ, that we've not abandoned anything inside of the book. For the likes of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the likes of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, that their dhikr, their mentioning inside of the Quran is very evident, okay? And this is something, well, no doubt whatsoever, it alludes to their lofty stature as it relates to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We try to busy ourselves, we try to strive to be of those who make mention of God, mention of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala busies himself with making mention of such people. Why? Because they're beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he renders what? Their name immortal, eternal, mentioned in the heavens as well as upon earth. These are great people, because they were people who extended benefit to humanity, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, amma ma yanfa'u nas, as for that which benefits people, فَيَمْكُثْ فِي الْأَرْضِ, that it will remain upon the face of planet earth. And the dhikr of such people remains upon planet earth, as in the hadith in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, because these people are mahbubuna ila Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're extremely beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As the Prophet ﷺ said in the Sahih of al-Bukhari, إِذَا حَبَّ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a slave, nada Jibreel, he summons Gabriel, and he says to Gabriel alayhi salam, إِنِّي أُحِبُّ فُلَانًا, verily I love so and so, فَأَحِبُّهُ, so love him. فَأَحَبُّهُ Jibreel, the Prophet ﷺ said, so Gabriel loves him. And when Gabriel loves a person, nada ila ahl sama, that he calls out to the heavens, to the people of the heavens, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ فُلَانًا, verily Allah loves so and so, فَأَحِبُّهُ, so love him. And the Prophet ﷺ says, فَإِذَا أَحَبُّهُ, and so when they love him, يُوضَعَ لَهُ الْقَبُولِ فِي الْأَرْضِ, then acceptance upon earth is granted to that individual. From the signs of such acceptance upon earth is that person becomes madhkur, becomes mentioned on the tongues of the greats, okay, of the people of righteousness and piety and proximity to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those people are ultimately, as the Prophet ﷺ called them, muhaddithun, mulhimun, mutakallimun in the hadith, in the Sahih of al-Bukhari. Those people who were inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that their tongues are closely aligned with the speech of the divine, such that which they utter is based upon the fact that it's something uttered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and spoken about in the heavens. هكذا عمر ibn Khattab. This is the nature of the great Imam of the believer, Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. Madhkur, meaning somebody who was mentioned prior to his manifestation upon the earth. Mentioned. Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, his reality, mudawwan, inscribed inside of the Torah in and of itself. Not somebody who's just revealed, spoken about inside of the Quran, but he's somebody who's also spoken about by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the original manifestation of the Torah. And not only the original manifestation of the Torah, but even after the inhiraf, even after the Torah was doctored, the mentioning of Umar ibn Khattab still remained. Up until the very keys of Jerusalem were handed into the hands of Umar ibn Khattab in and of himself. He's the Fatih. He's the great opener of Sham. He's the Fatih. He's the great opener of the Iraq and that which lies beyond the great river. He's the Fatih. He's the great opener of Egypt in and of itself. We're going to see after the great but very brief period of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu warda, we're going to see the expansion of Islam explode under the actual leadership of this great Imam of the Muslims, whose name is Umar ibn Khattab, the one who was appointed by name by Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu warda. He's the only one of the Imams who's going to be appointed by the one who held office previous to him. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu warda is not going to be explicitly appointed by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he's somebody who the Imams of the Sahaba converge upon. Umar ibn Khattab is going to be appointed by Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu warda. And what we see that the people are swifter to Umar ibn Khattab than they were to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu warda. As we studied, for reasons that there's going to be a delay on behalf of certain elements of Ahlul Islam to give in the bay'ah unto Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu warda. We see no such delay whatsoever on the manifestation of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. Somebody the Ummah absolutely concurred upon the great Imam. A very, very complex individual, Sayyidina Umar. We look at the statement who the Imam As-Subki rahimahullah ta'ala makes when he speaks about one of the great Imams of Islam, Sayyidina Abu Hamid al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala. And he brings the statement by As'ad al-Mihani. Mihani, when he said, nobody can really know the superiority and the vastness of the knowledge of Al-Ghazali except he who has attained or almost attained a perfection of intellect. And what he's trying to state here, radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda, is the complexity of the greats of Ahlul Islam, like Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, that he's a very extremely complex being, radiallahu anhu warda. And only somebody who's attained a near perfection or an actual perfection of intellect is able to have like isti'ab, yani true comprehension of whom Abu Hamid al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala was. As a qaida, as a rule, to understand Ghazali, you have to be of Ghazali or beyond him. You have to be of the rank of al-Ghazali or beyond the rank of al-Ghazali. Hakada Abu Hamid al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, one of the most influential figures inside of Islam. And if that is Sayyidina al-Ghazali rahimahullah ta'ala, فَكَيْفَ بِعُمَرَ ibn Khattab? What then about Umar ibn Khattab? Who for amongst the Sahaba, he's an extremely complex human being. Very complex, that you should never take a statement or an act of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab at face value. And beyond it is like supreme intellect and vastness of spirit. And the only one we can sort of really compare in that type of complexity to Umar ibn Khattab, as we'll see, is Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib. And they're very, very similar, Sayyidina Umar and Sayyidina Ali, radiallahu ta'ala anhum warda, but they're extremely complex figures, very, very complex. Okay, and it needs complex and advanced minds as well as advanced spirits to truly try to understand exactly what they are doing in any given moment. Okay, this is the commentary of Sayyidina Tajuddin al-Subki, rahimahullah ta'ala, who's the one who brought the statement in his famous work, which is called the Tabaqat al-Shafi'iyya. It's called the biographies of the Imams of the Shafi'i school of jurisprudence, which is one of the greatest biographical works ever written by Ahlul Islam, the hands of the Muslims. It's a masterpiece in how a biography of an individual should be written, authored. He says, the statement, I find this statement about Al-Ghazali extremely interesting, as the one who seeks to understand the true rank of anyone who is superior to him must possess intellect and understanding. As with the intellect, he is able to distinguish, and as with understanding, he is able to adjudicate, to pronounce judgment upon the nature of a person or upon the nature of any single act that comes forth from that person in particular. What we're trying to sort of allude to here by bringing that statement is that Umar ibn Khattab is an extremely complex individual, and nobody should ever rush to judgment except people of profundity of intellect as to what Umar is doing or why. What is the motive behind why Umar ibn Khattab performs a single act. Okay? And what is notable, as many of us know about Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu warda, he's the one who narrates the actual great tradition. Many great traditions come forth on the tongue of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. Of the most oft tradition ever mentioned on the tongues of the people Sharqan wa Gharban of Islam, east and west of Islam, is the hadith in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari, إِنَّمَا الْعَمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. That entire tradition rests upon Umar ibn Khattab, rests upon him. And he's the only sound link in the chain of the companions. And it's probably the most oft mentioned tradition, period, in Islam, on behalf of the Prophet ﷺ. Imam al-Bukhari opens up his Sahih with that. Imam al-Nawawi opens up virtually all of his works. Riyadh al-Salihin, Arba'in al-Nawawiyah, opens it up with this tradition that was related on behalf of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda. Likewise, other traditions, and very famous axiomatic traditions, as an example, the hadith in Sahih Muslim of Jibreel alayhi salam, Gabriel. And in that question, in that tradition, we see that the tradition revolves around a series of questions, 5 questions, that were leveled by Jibreel at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what we see that the questioning is one of the greatest ways to access knowledge. The nature of knowledge rests upon a question. And that's what Umar ibn Khattab himself said, nisful ilm husnul su'al. He said half of knowledge is a good question. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu used to say. And one of the things which is interesting is that the hadith of questioning the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam on behalf of Gabriel, and it comes at the tongue of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab. Although we have other traditions related on behalf of Sayyidina Abu Hurairah, related on behalf of Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas and others, who also have narrations of the very same incident, the hadith of Gabriel, hadith of Jibreel alayhi salam, the one that the Ummah took to, that is rendered sound, it's got the stamp of authority by Imam Muslim inside of a Sahih, is the one of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu warda. And one of the things that we sort of get from that is that the art of questioning, the art of how knowledge is acquired, Gabriel shows that. إِنَّهُ جِبْرِيلٌ أَتَاكُمْ يُعَلِّمُكُمْ دِينَكُمْ. Remember, the end of the hadith is not Ya Aba Hurairah. The end of the hadith is not Ya Abdullah ibn Abbas. But the end of the hadith is Ya Umar. It's the Prophet ﷺ addressing the great Umar ibn Khatab. Ya Umar, أَتَدْرِي مَنِ السَّائِلِ. Do you know who the questioner was? Either the Prophet seeks out Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Khattab with adab, with the Prophet ﷺ. Because Umar is strikingly intelligent. He's he's of those who not only the Prophet ﷺ speaks about Umar ibn Khattab in the context of revelation, in the context of Nabuwah, saying Umar ibn Khattab, but the Prophet ﷺ dreams about Umar ibn Khattab. Subhanallah. We're struggling to dream about the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And have you ever wondered what were the dreams the Prophet ﷺ had, in knowledge of the fact that the dreams of the Prophets are all revelatory in nature? The dreams of prophets is communique from the divine subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Prophet ﷺ, how many times in the Sahih al-Bukhari, how many times in the Sahih al-Muslim, in the chapter of dreams, is the Prophet ﷺ dreaming about Sayyiduna Umar ibn Khattab? In his dreams, is the Prophet ﷺ interacting with Sayyiduna Umar ibn Khattab? In his dreams, is the Prophet ﷺ engaging the realities of Umar ibn Khattab in the next world, to Jannah, inside of paradise? In the dreams of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama, and of the dreams that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam experienced of Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab, one of the things he tells us about Umar, when كيف أولته يا رسول الله, how did you interpret this dream? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, al-ilm, knowledge, Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu warda, of profundity of intellect, Sayyidina Umar. And he's the one who could ask the Prophet when the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam informed him of the interrogation of the grave. And Munkar and Nakir. And we're interrogated in the grave by these two, and in opinions, three angels who will interrogate every single believer who is placed inside of the grave. When Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab heard of that and the questioning, Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab said to the Prophet ﷺ a very, very simple but striking question. Alana, u'quluna yawma idhin. On that day, will we have our intellects with us when we're inside of the grave?
That's my
question. And the
question.
Prophet ﷺ said, Na'am ya Umar. Yeah, human beings will have their intellect, will be fully conscious inside of the grave. Umar ibn Khattab said, Khalas, no problem. And he, so long as I have my intellect with me inside of the grave, and he's saying this to the Rasul. Make dua for me that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala yuthabbitni ala qawl al-thabit. Make dua that Allah ta'ala fames me upon a fame word, or the like. And he would say something to get the barakah of the Rasul that would protect us inside of the grave. Umar ibn Khattab, khalas, no problem. So long as my intellect is with me in the grave, I'm fine. And there's a riwayah of those who saw Umar ibn Khattab in a dream after his death. And Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu warda, when Munkar and Nakir entered upon Umar ibn Khattab inside of the grave, and they asked the first question, Men Rabbuka, who is your Lord? Umar ibn Khattab said to them, Men Rabbukuma antuma, who is your Lord? I'm the questioner today. That Umar ibn Khattab was somebody of striking intellect radiallahu anhu warda, and that no doubt has to underpin, the intelligence, profundity of his intelligence has to underpin any approach to Umar ibn Khattab, whenever he speaks, whenever he does an act. You're going to hear many times saying Umar ibn Khattab as if he's questioning, in a negative sense, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. No, khalas. And that's an erroneous interpretation. Umar ever questioned the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. You see Umar ibn Khattab questioning Sahaba, like saying that Hassan ibn Thabit radiallahu anhu in the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he's reciting poetry. Umar ibn Khattab, and he questioning Sayyidina Hassan about something he already has knowledge of. فَعَجِبْنَا لَهُ أَيَسْأَلُهُ وَيُصَدِّقُهُ. That's what Umar ibn Khattab said in the hadith of Gabriel. We were amazed at this individual who would ask a question to the Prophet ﷺ, وَيُصَدِّقُهُ, and say صَدَقَتَ, that you've spoken the truth. Because by you say you've spoken the truth, it's a sign that you already have knowledge of something. So thereby, for why are you asking the question? If you already know the answer, إِنَّهُ جَبْرِيلٌ أَتَاكُمْ يُعَلِّمُكُمْ دِينَكُمْ. It was Gabriel who came by virtue of those questions to teach you your religion, not to teach him the religion of Islam, not to teach him the reality of Iman, not to teach him the haqiqah, the reality of Ihsan, but to teach you. And by virtue of questions, often you see Umar ibn Khattab with that profundity of intellect now begin to teach those in his presence, to cast the doubt out of the heart of those in his presence, by a series of questions that he asks, radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda. And the man of profound certainty, knowledge inside of the deen of Islam is tantamount to certainty. And that's why one of the most amazing commentaries you see upon the nature of Umar is by the great Imam Abu Abdullah Ibn Abi Jamra radiallahu anhu warda, the commentary Andalusi, the great Spanish Imam who commentates on Sahih al-Bukhari, some consider him the greatest commentator ever radiallahu anhu warda. And when we look at the actual passing, the flight of the Prophet ﷺ, and the reaction of Umar ibn al-Khattab to the actual passing of the Prophet ﷺ, you don't really understand what has taken place. Don't take that at face value. Umar ibn al-Khattab, sword unsheathed. Whoever says that the Prophet ﷺ has passed, I will strike them with this sword. And you see most commentators that Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu warda had lost control of himself due to the faqd of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, losing of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the passing of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ibn Abi Jamra negates it. Umar ibn al-Khattab losing his intellect. Because one thing we know about Umar ibn al-Khattab, thabat. And the absolute firmness when other people lose it. We know that about Umar. We'll see it through his life, radiallahu anhu warda. So let's engage the Imam. His name and his lineage. His name is Abu Hafs Umar ibn al-Khattab ibn Nufayl ibn Abdul Uzza ibn Riyah ibn Abdullah ibn Qart ibn Razah ibn Adi ibn Ka'b ibn Lu'ay ibn Ghalib al-Qurayshi al-Adawi al-Faruq radiallahu ta'ala anhu Amir al-Mu'mineen, the prince of the believers radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda. So we look at his name in order to gather a sense of who Umar ibn al-Khattab is, because no doubt his name ultimately is his reality is ultimately encapsulated inside of his name. Abu Hafs is his kunya. That's his kunya radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda. Kunya is by name, his nickname, which is sunnah, as we've learned. The Prophet ﷺ's kunya is what? Is Abu Qasim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Abu Zahra, Abu Fatima sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi wa sallam. Abu Hafs. I know to be Abu Hafs, that was a name given to him by the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because we note, as some of them state, that it's Abu Hafs, not Abu Hafsa. Okay? Naam, he's the father of Hafsa, the wife of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, the mother of the believers. But his kunya is Abu Hafs. Abu Hafs. And some say it doesn't relate to his daughter Hafsa. But Hafs is one of the 300 names in the Arabic language for a lion. Abu Hafs. So the kunya that the Prophet ﷺ gives Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab of them is that what he is the father of the lion. And what does that mean? He possesses the quality of a lion. Bravery. Okay, Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab. There's a tradition Ibn Abi Jamra rahimahullah ta'ala brings in his commentary on al-Bukhari that speaks about the 4 Imams of the Sahaba as they relate to the Prophet ﷺ, in which the Prophet ﷺ says, Ana Madinatul Sakha, I am the citadel of munificence, generosity, wa Abu Bakr babuha, wa ana Madinatul Shuja', and I am the citadel of bravery, wa Umar babuha, wa ana Madinatul Ifa, and I am the citadel of temperance, the control of your nafs, wa Uthman babuha, wa ana Madinatul Ilm, wa Ali babuha, and Ali is what the gateway to that citadel. The Prophet ﷺ says in relation to Umar ibn al-Khattab that he is what? The gateway to the citadel of bravery. He's a very, very courageous individual, saying Umar ibn al-Khattab. The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda, they said we never saw anybody from amongst the Sahaba like Umar ibn al-Khattab when it came to bravery, and when it came to the lack of fear, no fear whatsoever. And Umar ibn al-Khattab, interestingly, look why it's important to know who he is, where he's from. He relates that to his childhood, and in particular to his father, saying Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu warda, who instilled in him not just bravery, but the lack of fear, absence of fear. That the only fear Umar ibn al-Khattab had was fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's something that came from his childhood, in the way his father himself raised him. So he's a person of great bravery, saying Umar ibn al-Khattab, Abu Hafs. لا يخاف لومة لائم. It says of the great quality that he has no fear whatsoever of the criticizer, saying Umar ibn al-Khattab. We mentioned people dream, and people used to dream about Umar. We mentioned of the companion Auf ibn Malik al-Khuza'i that he had a dream of saying Umar ibn al-Khattab. And in the dream is in the time of Abu Bakr, last days of Abu Bakr. When he goes on to Abu Bakr al-Siddiq and he said, I saw inside of a dream called Jama' al-Nas, that human beings had been gathered on the Mawqif, the plains of judgment. And I saw that there was a man who was elevated above everybody else. ثلاثة أذرع, 3 أذرع, 3 arms length. Okay? Elevated above everybody else. فَسَأَلْتُ مَنْهُ, I asked, who is it? He said, Umar ibn al-Khattab. He said, that's Umar ibn al-Khattab, distinguished from everybody on the day of judgment. He says, وَلِمَا, what distinguishes him, Umar ibn al-Khattab? He mentions from amongst them 3 qualities. He said 3 qualities distinguish Umar ibn al-Khattab. أَوَّلُ فِي شَيْءٍ لَا يَخَافُ لَوْمَةَ لَائِمٍ. He has no fear whatsoever of criticism and the criticizer. As we know inside the Quran, that is one of the distinguishing characteristics of the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That they have no fear whatsoever of the criticism of the criticizer. The second, وَهُوَ الْخَلِيفَةُ الْمُسْتَخْلَفِ, that he is the one, is the caliph in waiting. And then the third, huwa shaheed al-mustashhad, he is what? A martyr that is actively seeking martyrdom, in search of martyrdom, Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab. Tayyib, yani, Sayyidina Auf bin Malik radiallahu anhu, he goes to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq when he awakes after seeing this dream. And he mentions it to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is the supreme interpreter of dreams amongst the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Will you not give glad tidings to Umar? That's an amazing dream, Yawm al-Qiyamah. Tubashir Umar. So they went and called Umar ibn al-Khattab. And Abu Bakr then says to Sayyidina Auf bin Malik, خلاص قص عليه الرؤيا. Relate to him the dream. And then Sayyidina Auf begins to relate the dream to Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. To Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab about what occurred. Until he reaches the point where he says in the dream, the man says, هو الخليفة المستخلف, he's the caliph in waiting. Umar ibn al-Khattab says, uskut, be silent. You would dare say that to me, wa Abu Bakr hayy, whilst Abu Bakr is living? You would dare say that? Because the implication of the dream is the death of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu warda, and the ascendancy of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab. That's the implication of the dream from its meanings. And not only is it implication of the dream, but إِذَا عُبِّرَ وَقَعَ. The Prophet ﷺ said, when dreams are interpreted, khalas, imprinted, they occur. So you're even hastening, quote unquote, the actual death of Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq by relating that type of dream. Okay? Umar uskut, and Umar walks, doesn't allow him to finish the dream. Sayyidina Auf radiallahu anhu warda said, after the passing of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, I was walking past the masjid, and Umar ibn Khattab is upon the mimbar. He's standing up on the mimbar, فَنَادَانِي, and he called me. He said, khalas, now finish the dream now. Finish the dream. And then Auf radiallahu anhu finishes the dream that you are a martyr who's actively in search of martyrdom. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu says, martyrdom? But where would I ever get martyrdom from? He said, I dispatched the armies to the 4 corners of the earth, and here I am in the midst of Medina. How am I going to get martyrdom whilst I'm in the midst of Medina, and battle is beyond Medina tul Munawwara? Hafsa radiallahu anha wardaha, the sidq of Umar ibn Khattab, she said that her father often, consistently used to pray for martyrdom. And he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if He's decreed it, it will reach me even in the midst of Medina tul Munawwara. And hakada, it came to pass. How the Sayyidina Umar ibn Khattab was martyred in the midst of Medina, the epicenter, right in the masjid of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. So he's Abu Hafs, we'll see a man of immense bravery, radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda, as named by the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And even if somebody was a coward and was thereby named Abu Hafs, khalas, fajr, bravery would explode from them. That's the reality of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, yughayir al-ahwal, transforms the states of human beings. What about if the asl is bravery? If your nature is bravery, then the Prophet gives that the stamp of authority. How? What the type of quantum leap he took in that regard? His name is Umar radiallahu anhu wardan. His father is al-Khattab, Umar ibn al-Khattab. Okay, as you learn that his father was somebody of great prominence in his age. Umar ibn al-Khattab, the father al-Khattab, but he was also somebody who was extremely stern, and also likewise somebody who was an idolater, very firm in idolatry. And any manifestation of anything which would go against idolatry, he would be extremely opposed to it. And that's going to dictate the early years of Umar ibn al-Khattab, who's very opposed to the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ. Khatab, the father of the Prophet ﷺ, has several brothers, from amongst them Zayd, from amongst them somebody called Ammar. He has a brother called Ammar. Okay? The son of Ammar is called Zayd. Very famous man. Imam Bukhari has an entire chapter upon him. His name is Zayd bin Ammar bin Nufail. Okay, Zayd bin Ammar bin Nufail. Zayd bin Ammar bin Nufail. So Ammar is the brother of Al-Khattab, and his son is called Zayd. Imam radiallahu anhu warda. His son, famous, of the 10 people guaranteed paradise, Sa'id ibn Zayd. That's the son of Zayd bin Amr bin Nufail. He was the Imam of monotheism inside of his time. Sahih al-Bukhari taught monotheism of what are called those early udul, those early hunafa, the people who deviated from the social norm of taghut, of idolatry, and professed oneness in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and in anticipation for the manifestation of final prophecy, and of these makarim al-akhlaq, these higher virtues of character. But he, when he used to proclaim oneness, belief in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Umar ibn Khattab's father, Khatab, used to torture and oppress his own nephew, Zayd bin Amr bin Nufail, radiallahu ta'ala anhu warda. Of those who the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he lived alone, but he'd be raised as an entire nation. Zayd bin Amr bin Nufail, Yub'ath Ummah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about the great Imam of Jahiliyyah, Zayd bin Amr bin Nufail. Okay, so this is Khatab, Nufail bin Abdul Uzza bin Riyah bin Abdullah bin Qarb bin Rizah ibn Adi. And that's the one you underline, Adi.
Okay, so we're gonna leave it here for today. 29:59. I don't know why we didn't click one more second so that it's 30, but it feels right. So tomorrow there's none. Probably Monday. Let me check the dates. What is today? 25th. So this will go out 26th. So that is Friday, Saturday 27, Sunday 28, Monday 29, Tuesday 30 or 31st. So either 30 or 31st I will be back, right, with the continuation of this. I did tell the people to end the buy my coffee on 25th because that's the last day, but I should have ended it sooner because 25th is literally like the last day I can video. But anyways, I'll be back, and yeah, thank you guys for joining. And this is a new Sahaba, Omar, and yeah, interesting so far. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you like this video, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.